Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, Alex returns home after a long, sleepless night at the farm. But this time, he's not carrying just exhaustion. He brings with him life-changing news that will alter everything between him and his mother. After years of rebuilding his business and heart from the ashes of betrayal, Alex confesses that Tuna, the woman who stood by him through every storm, is now carrying his child. What follows is a tense yet deeply emotional conversation between a mother protecting her son. Stay until the end to see how honesty, courage, and unconditional love begin to mend the broken walls of their home. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support truly means the world to us. The morning sun barely pushes through the clouds when Alex's car rolls into the driveway. The sound of gravel crunching under the tires cuts through the silence of the yard. Behind the window, Mrs. Huyen stands still, shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her sharp eyes follow the familiar figure stepping out of the car. Her son, weary, hair tousled, and his shirt carrying the faint scent of wood smoke. Before he can even reach the porch, she opens the door. "Alex, you didn't come home last night," she says, her voice calm but edged with tension. Alex forces a tired smile. "I stayed at the farm, Mom. It got late and the fog was thick. Driving back would have been dangerous." Mrs. Huyen folds her arms, gaze unwavering. "You stayed there? With Tuna?" He meets her eyes and doesn't flinch. "Yes, Mom. I stayed with her." For a moment, the air between them feels frozen. She steps aside silently, motioning him inside. The faint smell of herbal tea lingers in the living room as she speaks again, this time slower. "You're the CEO of a company, Alex. You know how people talk. One night like that can destroy a reputation." Alex takes a deep breath, his tone steady but softer now. "Mom, this isn't about reputation anymore. There's something you need to know." She narrows her eyes. "What is it?" He hesitates only for a second before the words come out. Slow, heavy, and deliberate. "Tuna's pregnant. She's having my baby." The teacup in her hand trembles slightly. She places it down on the table, porcelain clinking faintly. "What did you just say?" Alex steps closer. "She's pregnant. She didn't plan to tell me yet. I found out last night. She's been sick lately, dizzy, and I knew something was wrong." When she finally said it, she looked terrified. Mrs. Huyen's face tightens, color draining slowly. "Oh, Alex," she murmurs, almost to herself. "How could you let this happen now? You've just rebuilt your business after everything that woman Mai did. You're barely staying afloat. And now, a child?" Alex lowers his gaze for a moment, then looks up, eyes firm. "I know it's not perfect timing, but this isn't a mistake, Mom. This is family." She sinks into the couch, the sound of her bracelets faint as they clink together. Family. Do you even understand what that word means right now? You're drowning in debt. The investors are restless, and you think love alone can fix everything? Alex stays quiet, his jaw tightening. "I'm not asking love to fix anything. I just won't let Tuna face this alone." Mrs. Huyen studies his face. The exhaustion, the lines carved from stress, but also something new behind his eyes. Resolve. She recognizes it instantly. It's the same stubbornness that once drove his father to build everything from nothing. She exhales, voice lower now. Does she even want this baby? Or is she scared of what you'll do if she says otherwise? Alex frowns, taken aback. What are you implying, Mom? I'm saying, she replies calmly, that sometimes people hold on to what feels safe, especially when life gives them so little. His voice hardens. Tuna isn't like that. She's never asked me for a thing. Not money, not help, not pity. She works from dawn to night, building that farm with her own hands. She's not clinging to me, Mom. I'm the one clinging to her. Mrs. Huyen looks away, lips pressed thin. The silence stretches long. Finally, she speaks, eyes fixed on the window, where the faint outline of the bamboo grove shimmers in the wind. And what now? What do you plan to do with all this? Alex's answer is simple. I'm going to marry her. Her head snaps toward him. Marry? You're serious? Yes. He steps closer, voice deep but calm. Not because of the baby, but because I want to. I should have done it already. Mrs. Huyen rises from the couch slowly, hands clenched together. Alex, marriage isn't some patch for your mistakes. You can't carry a company and a family at the same time. You'll break. He looks at her squarely. I'd rather break trying to protect them than lose them by doing nothing. The conviction in his voice makes her heart falter. For a long moment, she can't find words. He's not that restless boy anymore. He's a man standing firm for the people he loves. Finally, she sighs, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. You've already made up your mind, haven't you? I have, he says quietly. She crosses her arms, thinking deeply. Then at least let me meet her. I want to look into the eyes of the woman carrying my grandchild. A faint relief softens his face. She'll come tomorrow. I'll bring her here. Alex turns to leave, but before he reaches the hallway, she calls after him softly. Alex, does she understand what kind of world she's walking into? He stops at the doorway, glancing back. She doesn't care about money or power. All she wants is peace. And maybe, Mom, that's exactly what we need too. When the door closes behind him, Mrs. Huyen stands still, her fingers brushing the rim of her teacup. The quiet fills the room, heavy but not cold. Upstairs, Alex sits on the edge of his bed, phone in hand. A new message from Tuna glows on the screen. I'm scared, but I'm happy too. He types slowly. Don't be scared. I'll handle everything. Outside, the wind stirs the bamboo leaves, brushing softly against the windows like whispers of what's to come. Alex leans back, closes his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, feels something close to peace. Downstairs, Mrs. Huyen pours herself another cup of tea, the steam curling like quiet thoughts. Her mind races about the company, about her son's future. But under all the worry, a subtle warmth spreads in her chest. A grandchild, a new life. Perhaps, she thinks, this might be the one thing that brings light back into Alex's weary world. Just as that thought begins to settle, her phone buzzes on the table. She glances down. A message from her private investigator. We found something. The man who sabotaged your son's deal wasn't working alone. Her breath catches. The teacup clinks against its saucer. Whatever hope she felt moments ago flickers, replaced by an old familiar dread. She grips the phone tighter and whispers to herself, "No one's going to hurt my son again. Not now. Not ever." The next morning dawns quiet and cold. A silver mist lingers over the fields, wrapping the trees and fences in pale light. Alex wakes early, eyes heavy but mind clear. He stands by the window of his room, watching sunlight struggle through the clouds. Today, Tuna will come, and with her, everything will change. Downstairs, the faint clinking of porcelain echoes. Mrs. Huyen is already up, arranging teacups and slicing fruit with careful precision. Her movements are steady, but her eyes betray the tension within. Each slice of the knife feels like a countdown. When Alex comes down, tie loosened, face freshly washed, she doesn't look up right away. "You told her what time?" she asks quietly. "She'll be here around 9, Alex replies, pouring himself a cup of tea. She's nervous. Mrs. Huyen gives a small nod. She should be. Then, after a pause, "And you, are you nervous?" He gives a faint smile. "Maybe a little, but I know what I want." Her eyes lift to him then, studying her son, like she's seeing him for the first time in years. "You've changed," she says softly. "You sound more like your father than I expected." Alex's throat tightens. He would have understood, wouldn't he? Her lips tremble slightly before she presses them into a thin smile. He would have done the same thing. He always led with his heart. The conversation ends there, but warmth lingers between them. Not long after, a small blue motorbike hums up the gravel road. The sound grows louder until it stops at the gate. Through the fog, Tuna steps off, her long coat fluttering around her knees. Her hands cradle her belly almost unconsciously, still small, barely showing. But there's a gentleness in the gesture. Alex opens the door before she can knock. "Hey," he says quietly, voice softer than usual. Tuna smiles shyly. "Morning." When she steps inside, she immediately feels the weight of the house. Its quiet formality, its polished air. The wooden floors gleam. The family portraits stare down with serious eyes. She removes her shoes, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. Mrs. Huyen sits on the couch, her back straight, eyes calm yet sharp. "You must be Tuna," she says evenly. "Yes, ma'am," Tuna answers softly, bowing her head. "I'm sorry for coming so suddenly." "Sit," Mrs. Huyen gestures to the seat opposite. "I've heard a lot about you." Tuna glances briefly at Alex, who gives a reassuring nod. I hope it's not all bad," she says nervously. To her surprise, Mrs. Huyen's lips twitch, almost smiling. "Depends who you ask." For a moment, tension cracks into faint laughter, brief but enough to ease the air. Alex pours tea, his hand steady, though his heart beats fast. Mrs. Huyen studies Tuna quietly, eyes tracing the calluses on her hands, the faint tiredness around her eyes. "You work at the farm full-time?" she asks. "Yes." Tuna nods. "We've been planting grapefruit and bamboo shoots. It's been good, though this season's been harder with the rain." "You do all that yourself?" "With a few workers, but I enjoy it. It keeps my mind clear." Mrs. Huyen sips her tea. "And now, you're expecting a child." The words land like soft thunder. Tuna's hand instinctively moves to her stomach, her eyes downcast. "Yes, ma'am. It was unexpected, but I want to keep it." even if it means living a harder life? Tuna looks up, and for the first time, her voice doesn't waver. Life's already been hard, ma'am, but love makes it easier to bear. I don't have much, just what I can build with my own hands, but that's enough for me. Something flickers in Mrs. Huyen's gaze, a mix of respect and melancholy. You remind me of someone, she says quietly. Myself, many years ago. Alex looks between them, hope rising in his chest. But then, Mrs. Huyen leans forward slightly, tone firmer now. Listen carefully, Tuna. I have no doubt you love my son. But Alex's world is not simple. There are people out there waiting for him to fail, waiting to destroy everything he's built. If you become part of his life, they'll come for you too. Are you ready for that? Tuna's eyes steady. I don't fear hardship, ma'am. What scares me is regret. Watching someone I love face it all alone. The room falls silent again. The only sound is the slow ticking of the wall clock. Finally, Mrs. Huyen nods, her sternness softening into quiet acceptance. Then I suppose there's nothing left for me to say. Alex exhales, a long breath he didn't realize he was holding. But before relief can settle, Mrs. Huyen adds, however, there's one thing you both need to understand. The company's troubles aren't over. Someone inside has been feeding information to competitors. I've had people investigating, and they've found traces. Someone close to us might be involved. Alex stiffens. What? How close? She hesitates, glancing at her phone on the table. Close enough that you should be careful who you trust. Tuna looks worried. Could this affect the farm too? Alex shakes his head. I'll handle it. You don't need to worry about that. But Mrs. Huyen's eyes stay fixed on her son. You can't fight everything alone, Alex. You're not invincible. He nods, but the determined glint in his eyes says otherwise. Moments later, Mrs. Huyen stands, smoothing her dress. I'll prepare a small lunch. We should celebrate in our own way. After all, this is still good news. Tuna's eyes widen, her hand flying to her chest. You mean you accept us? Mrs. Huyen gives a faint smile. I don't reject family, child. And like it or not, that's what you are now. Tears glisten at the corners of Tuna's eyes. She bows deeply, whispering, Thank you, ma'am. Alex watches, relief flooding through him like warm sunlight after a storm. As the day stretches on, laughter slowly returns to the quiet house. The three of them share tea, stories, even a few hesitant smiles. It feels fragile, like the first bloom after a long winter, but it's real. When Tuna leaves later that afternoon, the mist has lifted. The sky glows pale gold. She turns back at the gate, meeting Alex's gaze. She's kind, Alex, she says softly, stronger than she looks. Alex smiles. That's where I got it from. Inside the house, Mrs. Huyen stands by the window, watching them. Her lips curve into the faintest smile, though her thoughts remain stormy beneath the calm surface. She picks up her phone again, opening the investigator's message from earlier. We're getting closer. The mole is tied to one of your own senior staff. She locks the screen, sets the phone down, and whispers to herself, Let them come. This time, my family won't break. Upstairs, Alex leans against the doorframe, eyes closed, a soft smile touching his lips. The air smells of tea and hope. For once, he feels the world beginning to shift, not away from him, but toward something new, something worth fighting for. And somewhere, deep inside that warmth, a quiet heartbeat has already joined their story. Small, fragile, but strong enough to change everything.